Hey YouTube, how you going? Welcome to a brand new video. This is a video that I've been wanting to record for a little while, and it's basically to call out the fact that, look, you can't actually build a full stack SaaS app in 10 minutes like what a lot of other YouTube creators are pushing out. I really feel that the AI spruikers of today are like yesterday's dropship course creators, where they're creating these videos saying, hey, anyone can make $10,000 a day if you just download my dropship course and or pay for my dropship course and set this thing up. Now, obviously, a lot of these AI kind of influencers aren't selling you a course per se, but they're trying to monetize. Well, they are monetizing their videos. They're trying to get huge volume of views, and they're trying to convince people that you can do a lot more with AI than is actually possible without thinking through the business logic that your application needs to support. So, who am I? Why is it worth listening to me? I'm not going to put up my hand and say that I'm a senior software developer, who's worked at, the largest tech companies in the world. That's not me. But I have learned to code approximately 3 to 5 years ago. I did learn to code, but never had the intention of working as a full-time developer. Pretty much I had a couple of startups, including SaaS startups that I was working on. I wanted to be able to write the code myself. I wanted to be able to work with my development team more closely. And after learning that, I've had about 12 to 18 months away prior to working on another application that just recently launched called Kernel. And I'd pegged my skill set, kind of like a junior developer, someone who still needs a little bit of hand-holding. But the reason why I think that's really relevant when we're talking about AI is that AI is exceptionally good for people like me, who can, at least I have the understanding and I can read code, I understand what it's trying to do, but sometimes I get stuck because I just haven't seen these problems before, and AI is there to assist me and guide me through the process, and we can iterate and go back and forward. So with that out of the way, what I want to do is dive into why you can't build a full stack app in just 10 minutes. But the good news is, yes, you can actually build a full stack app with AI. I've proven it with Kernel, and I'm now working on my second project, Playwise HQ. So you can do it. It just takes more than 10 minutes, and it takes a little bit more thought process and planning and consideration. In fact, my number one recommendation for anyone out there who wants to code with AI and get started is go and do a course, spend 15, 20 hours, get some basic understanding, and it's going to take you so much further than just jumping into ChatGPT or Claude and throwing prompts at it. So, as I said, no, you can't do it in 10 minutes. I don't want to pick on any one video. I haven't watched every single you can build a SaaS app in 10-minute video, but here's a collection of titles that I kind of see often on YouTube. And I think, as I said, it's just setting false expectations for a lot of people. So, why can't you build a full stack SaaS app in just 10 minutes? Well, problem number one is often these videos only show the front end, especially if they're using something like V0, Bolt.new, Lovable. They look great sometimes because these people can be pretty good at prompting, and those tools can create some quite nice UI, and often it looks like the application is working because there's interactivity. People are able to click things and it opens things and it shows data and it, etc. But again, when you use those tools, often it's just hard coding that as dummy data, so it's got something to show you. The good news is these type of videos are getting a little bit less prevalent, especially as some of these tools now offer kind of more seamless integration with backend, with databases and that kind of thing like Supabase. However, it's still something to definitely be aware of. The second big thing though is like often these videos are highly edited. They show the process of, hey, I put this prompt in, I get this result, wow. Now here's my next prompt, I get this result, wow. But what they're not showing you is that the debugging and the troubleshooting takes a hell of a lot longer than just writing the prompt. Again, I'm not talking about if this is just on the front end, because with like V0, Bolt, etc., often you can just click that button and it goes and fixes the issue. More often than not, that's like an import issue. The components are not being passed the right parameters or being passed the right data. Like they're not big, meaty issues most of the time. Again, because it's using dummy data in a lot of those videos and it's high level. So if you're then trying to do the back end yourself and you've got a prompt and you put it in, and it doesn't work, if you stop recording, you might spend an hour figuring that out or half an hour or whatever, and people aren't showing that. So it's just something to be aware of. The other thing that I see time and time again is often the full code that they're showing you in these videos doesn't even work. They'll get back to it. They'll create the initial UI often, even if they have integrated with, a database and they've got a bit of a back end and they're showing that, CRUD operations, if you're not familiar with that term, create, read, update, delete. So being able to add a task, for example, get that task, edit it, update it. But often they'll then fall into some trap where some part of it's not working, but because the UI still looks nice and shiny and there's some interactivity, they're like, oh, this is a minor thing, we'll just get back to it. That again, setting false expectations, because getting back to it and fixing those bugs may in fact take a lot of time. And also, if you're not able to understand what might be causing the bug, sometimes ChatGPT, Claude, all these tools can go down rabbit holes, and it's very hard to get it back out without starting a new chat or thinking about it from a different point of view. The next point is that even if they are able to get their full stack app, working with CRUD operations, again, create, read, update, delete. Let's use a task management application as an example. Hey, you can create a task, you can see the task on your dashboard, you can hit an edit button, and you can delete it. That's a very simplistic app. These people aren't talking about or positioning how do we do proper error handling. Not only error handling in general, but do we have different error handling for production? Do we have different error handling if we're working on our local machine during dev? If we just do a generic error handler, is that error handler sharing the same error logs and error messages both in production and development? There's a lot of things that you don't want to share in production. For example, when you write, if you're working in development, you might be logging things like, the entire data object, the entire model, the user's details, all of these things. And in production, you might not want to do that because you're basically leaking this information, and someone, can see things that maybe they aren't meant to see. Again, proper middleware, the reusable code that's used across your application in that middleware layer. Are they even thinking about this? Are they going, hey, we've gone and asked, a tool to create the ability to add a task, and then later on we've created the ability to edit a task, and both of them have, maybe it's authentication, right? It's an authenticated route. Are they using middleware for that, or are they just configuring it in both of those kind of files or functionality requirements separately? Because then you're going to run into issues down track. Again, proper authentication is part of that, and then also supporting edge cases. This is probably the biggest one I see, because again, with that task management application, on the surface it seems very simple. Let's go and build a task management application, right, where someone can add tasks. If you want that to be a saleable app, though, something that actual people want to use, presumably you're going to support teams. So there can be an account with multiple users in that account. So what are the edge cases associated, even with something as simple as creating a task? Can anyone in that account create a task? If they can anyone edit that task? Or is it only the person who created the task? Can anyone delete the task? What if anyone can delete the task? Then I created a task and then Bob over there goes and deletes my task. Is that, proper, from a business logic and user logic perspective, is that proper functionality that you want to support? Again, a lot of these videos don't even consider that. They don't even talk about these edge cases, and that's just one very minute example, around just something as simple as creating a task, let alone, an application that you actually want to sell to businesses and have people using. So that's the other big issue. We've touched on this as we've gone. There's often little to no consideration to security. I'm sure if you're kind of across the, Reddit sphere, the Twitter or X sphere, you will have seen there was a building public guy who was creating an app, and he was leaking his environment variables, he was leaking his API keys, and people very quickly saw this. So environment variables aren't really that crazy a security consideration. Like, I code on the back end in Node.js, you have your .env file, you kind of don't hard code those environments in your kind of core Node.js application, and then when you deploy to like render, it has a whole settings section where you can configure those environment variables. Like, that's not really that complex, but people are already mucking this up. Same thing with API keys, just hard coding them in there. And that's only on that front. Like, what about your database password and things like that? I'm very conscious when I'm recording videos to always take off the screen my environment variables, just because someone could even see video recording, right? And, write out get one of my API keys, and then at the very worst, go and spend a bunch of my money. Not at the worst, that's like the least, bad thing, right? The worst would be, using my email, for example, my email service to go and spam a whole heap of people or something. Or getting access to my data, again, if it's my database password, and then my clients, my customers' data has been exposed. So you can solve all these problems with AI. You just need to think about it and articulate it and go through all of these things really carefully. And that, really kind of brings me to the summary point, and we've touched on this a little bit as well, but there's no real understanding of the real world considerations for scalable apps. So what I was mentioning before, like the roles and permissions. Can anyone create a task? Okay, if they can, who can edit it? Who can delete it? Can anyone upgrade or downgrade the payment options that you have for the team? Like, often the answer to these in business applications is no. So if you're out there trying to make a quick and dirty SaaS application where I don't know, something super simple, like I don't even know, to be honest, like allowing a user just to create something as simple as their own tasks, right? And it's a one-person task management app. Okay, you don't need to think about these things as much, but then the problem becomes like, who's going to pay for a task management app that only they use, and when there's heaps of others out there that are already free, or if you can do it in 10 minutes, they just go build their own anyway. So this is really what I'm seeing when it comes to a lot of these videos, a lot of these people on Reddit who want to do this. And I love AI. I think it's it has amazing potential to transform the world, and amazing potential to help people, especially people like myself, or people who are willing to put in the time to learn some skill set and basically augment them. When I go back to when I learned to code, right, I would watch video tutorials, I'd read documentation, I'd do all these things, and I would often, as anyone who puts a hand up and says they've learned to code will tell you, is run into a bug or an issue, and I'm like, I just don't understand it. Like, I don't understand why it's occurring. I don't understand what the actual bug is, and without the mental model of understanding what might be happening, it can be extremely frustrating. The good news is that if you're learning to code today, you can just cut and paste that code, and don't just go and ask Claude or ChatGPT to fix the bug. Instead, my recommendation is ask Claude and ChatGPT to explain, why did this bug occur in our software. Now, a lot of times it might just be something super simple, right? You forgot to pass down a prop between components. You spelt something wrong. You weren't catching an error properly. But there are going to be other bugs that are more complex, and if you just ask ChatGPT or Claude to fix it, like, you're not learning anything. So asking, hey, explain why this bug occurred, and then if it's something that's really interesting, like, write some notes so you understand it. That's really where I see the benefit of these tools for people who are learning to code. But look, I want to wrap it there. They're the kind of main reasons why I really disagree with this notion that you can build an app, full-scale SaaS app in 10 minutes. But I do want to go back and remind everyone that with enough time, with enough effort, you can build a full stack SaaS app with AI, and I've done that. And I will just say one final thing as I'm choking up here. I'll link to my other channel down below where I'm documenting the journey of building a brand new startup from day one. It's called Playwise HQ. And in that, you'll see that I've got a couple of videos up there already where I'm talking about setting up the Node.js server with AI, and then creating an account with AI, or creating the functionality to create an account. You'll see that those videos in and of themselves are like 45 minutes, an hour long, because I'm going through a very robust process. I'm thinking through it to make sure we do it right. So just contrast that to these videos of building a SaaS app in 10 minutes, and tell me, which one you think is going to be able to have more robust functionality, be more scalable, be more secure, be more performant, and have the better chance of long-term success. Anyway, I'm choking up, so I'll finish here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.